Hello YouTube, another little video today about how to fix a puncture, but this time on a tubeless mountain bike tyre. I was about to take my bike out and I noticed there's a puncture on the sidewall which you can't really see. It actually was ballooning out the tyre, and I had to make a little slit to find the hole. So these are quite old tyres, so it could be this is going to be more common, but I think it is fixable on the side of the tubeless tyre. So I'm going to give it a go now and review the kit I bought some time ago and only just getting around to using now. So this is the kit. So you get loads of different forms of this, but I just went for a cycling box tubeless kit. It's exactly the same really as the car kit, but everything's just a lot smaller. So you can see there's the reaming tool, some small plug strips, and then obviously the applicator, which works same principle. You pull out. The only difference here is that you haven't got like any kind of retaining nut to hold it in, but I imagine it shouldn't be too hard, and it should work the same. The only difference here is that it's a sidewall, so I don't know if that's going to be as easy to repair as the tread, but we'll give it a go and see what happens. So you can hear the leak coming out there. Like I said, nothing's really caused this. There's no spike or anything, and I had to cut the rubber to get to it. So I think it's probably just wear and tear, but I've opened it up and you can hear it there. So what I'm going to have to do is open up the hole without really seeing where it is, but I can probably hear it. Yeah, so it's there. Obviously that's plugged the hole, but I need to make it wider for this to go in. So I mean, you can see there, it works so much easier than the car because of the forces involved. That should do it. So again, you just put the strip, the tacky strip in between, and you have that gap as always to remove the tool. So you just need to find the hole again, and in it goes. So you don't want to twist this, and then that's applied. Just got to pull it out. It'll be quite hard to do with one hand. Might have to put the camera down. So that's the tacky rods in. It is quite hard to pull out without that. Well, it's not hard to pull out, but it's a bit messy using your finger, but there's such small forces involved that you don't really need a retaining nut. So that in theory should block the hole. It was quite a big hole, I think, so we'll see. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work because it's a sidewall, but it does say you can repair sidewalls, so I'm just going to make sure that I've done everything I need. I don't think I need to let it set or anything. Then pump the tyre up and then cut the extra pieces off. Yeah, so you can inflate the tyre almost immediately, but you need to remove this, which you can just do with a pair of scissors. Which I'm going to do now. And that's the puncture complete before inflation. Obviously I'm not going to, could in theory push that in and then seal the rubber, but I'm not going to do that because I could end up pushing it through the hole, so it's probably going to be proud, and then inflate it from here. So it's still leaking, which makes me think it's got quite a big hole, so I'm going to give it a go with another one, but I wouldn't be surprised if this is going to be irreparable because the hole's too big. But I think you can use a couple, so I'm going to give it a go. So that hasn't worked at all. As you can see, it's quite a mess. I put two in there, still didn't work. Tried to kind of force them through the hole, still not working, and there's no way I can ride with it looking like this. So I'm going to pull these out. I know you can get tubeless repair patches rather than strips, so I think I'm going to buy a set of them and then include them in this video and then see if they work. Failing that, I can just put a tube in here, which I don't really want to do because I want to keep them tubeless. I'm not going to buy a new tyre for it, but we'll see what happens, and I'll give you an update when I've used the puncture patch repairs. Okay, so obviously we tried this cycling box tubeless 4-in-1 hole plugger, which didn't work before. I think the sidewalls are too thin. I couldn't see that working, so we've abandoned that. And the next way of trying to fix a tubeless kit is to fix it from the inside. So I bought this kit. It's quite expensive for what it is. I mean, it's £8. You only get 4 patches, but essentially you rough up the inside of the tyre, use this Velox cement, and then glue it from the inside. To be doubly sure, so I still want these to be tubeless. To be doubly sure, I'm going to put this no puncture sealant in it. The interesting thing is obviously you're trying to cut weight, but you're adding weight by putting this solution in it. But I think there's an added measure where if you get a thorn in a tubed tyre, you're going to get a puncture. But technically, if this is in there and it exposed to the air, it will seal it itself. So there are other benefits other than it just being low weight. You can, I think, this is a Presta valve, just kind of put it in directly, but I have this kit, which is a bleed kit, which you can use for bleeding brakes, but also putting in this into the tyre. I actually think I probably won't use this one. I've got another kit that's actually made for applying this, so it's the same kind of principle, but I'm not going to use that because I want to keep that fresh for if I ever do brakes. So I'll get that in a second. To remove the tyre, I always like to use these. They're strong enough to remove the tyre, but they're coated in plastic. You've got to be careful that the plastic doesn't break, but it won't damage the rims. So they're pretty good. Never fail with them. I find the plastic ones quite hard because they flex. And then finally, to get the tyre back on, this is an air shot, which basically you pump up to as high as you can, probably 100 psi, and then you just dump the air in, and it will expand the tyre so much that it will seat the seals, which is what you need. You can't pump it up with a normal tyre. So I'll try that and show you all this in this video. So this is what I was looking for. It's the same principle. You basically put the tubeless sealant in here, you suck it up from the packet, and then you can applicate it to the tyre through the Presta valve, taking the internal gubbins off not to bind it up, and then you can get the sealant into the tyre without causing any mess. There are other ways. You can kind of pour it in and then seal the tube, but I imagine that'd be quite messy if you haven't got a decent workshop. So I did it this way last time. You do about 3 or 4 of these. That seems to do the job pretty nice. You probably could use the bleed kit, but pretty much tainted then. You wouldn't want to put any dot fluid in it afterwards. So it takes a bit of cleaning up, but this is my dedicated one for tyres. That's what I'll be using, and I'll show you that shortly as well. Now, part of the reason I want to keep this tubeless is because I actually quite like these. I'm kind of, at the moment, just having a bit of a play with the bike, keeping all the nuts and bolts colour coordinated. If you had a tube tyre, then you're just stuck with whatever valves on the tyre, which is going to be a generic black one, and I quite like personalising the bike at the moment, so I'm managing to keep that. Now, with tubeless tyres, this will be seated in, which is why you need so much pressure to get it to seat in. So you have to break the seal, and then pretty much it will kind of peel off from the frame. These are quite old rims, and I think they work slightly different to newer ones, but the same principle, they're just airtight. So when you open up the tyre, you see basically what happens with tubeless tyres. You put the sealant in, and it's basically like a paste, so it makes them really dirty, but that is just the way it works with tubeless. So you can see here, this is all the paste from last time. It only solidifies once it's exposed to the air, so I think this will probably all solidify, but the idea is that when you get a puncture, this will collect around the tyre, solidify like a paste in the glue, and bind it up. But obviously our hole is too big on the side of the wall, so I'll probably give these a clean up and then just reapply, because this is all old now. So this is our old hole that we tried to fix from before. As I said, I made this cut because this was ballooning out, so I think it's an old tyre and it obviously just had a bit of a pinch in it or something, but so I had to cut that to get to the hole. It's the first time looking at the inside. It's essentially going to be, obviously I've made it bigger now, trying to fix it. Just clean it up and put a patch on it. It's very close to the rim, but can only give it a go. That's as clean as I'm realistically going to get it. So then you've got to choose what patch size. Now you only get a couple in here. You get 3 that size and 1 large size. So because this is so close to the rim, I'm just going to try the smallest one and try and get it about there, because this is going to go into the seal of the rim, which will get deformed, and this should just about cover it. I mean, I haven't got high hopes because of how old the tyre is and how close it is to the rim, but like I said, you can only try. So we've roughed up the surface. I'm going to apply the cement paste, wait for a minute, stick it on, and fingers crossed. Now, if you've ever fixed an inner tube before, it's a bit of an art form for this, for applying the glue and then putting the patch on not too late and not too early. That should do it. Done quite a liberal amount, and make sure it covers everything and wait for it to go a bit tacky. So as you can see, it's been about a minute and you kind of get the tackiness there, so that's about ready. And once the backing is off, apply centrally. And now we have the patch applied. I do wonder whether we could just use normal patches for an inner tube, because when they're under a massive amount of stress, they have the same kind of pressure, they have to expand in size, where this doesn't. I don't think it's even that relevant that this is thick or not, it just literally has to plug the hole. So Bear in mind these are £8 for 4. I think in future I'd actually give it a go using a normal patch, because it seems like the glue and the principles are the same. The only difference is that this is thicker, but I don't think it needs to be thick, it just needs to cover the hole. But it pretty much works in the same principle. Now I'm going to let this cure a bit more and then put a little bit more paste on to be doubly sure, and put the tyre back on, and the final stage is do the tubless sealant that would assist as well. So hopefully that should have worked. I can't see why it wouldn't, it's just the fact that it's on the seam that makes me wonder that it might be under a bit of stress and might come apart, but hopefully that's where the tubless sealant will come into play, and we will hopefully have a fixed tyre. So when putting the tyre back on the rim, I'm going to put the damaged side on first, because you don't need to flex or force that on, which means it should hopefully save the patch. And then the kind of when I do the other side, I will probably put that on with just handheld force there, and only at the top use this, which would be the most stress, to the furthest point away from the repair. So the tyre's on, took some doing, so very, very tight tyre, it's 26 inches, but tyre's on, the air shot is up to about 100 PSI, I think it is. My pump doesn't really stay on much more than that, so it kind of pushes itself off. So the aim of this is that we've got compressed air. We dump the air in, and it goes with such force that it seals the tyre. So sometimes I have to do it a couple of times, but what you're waiting for is a bit of a sound that it's sealed, just there. Normally there's 2, so I don't think that's sealed all the way around. So the next thing to do is to remove this inner Presta valve, which means we can get the sealant in. So you just use like a little tool like this just to take that out, which means this doesn't get gummed up. So here's the solution inside the applicator. I take this bit off and then literally just marry that up to the top there, unless you've got a fitting that fits, and it just sucks it up, and then you don't have anything getting jammed in here. And then this bit screws on the Presta valve, and I'll probably put the whole lot in, I think. So the applicator goes on first separately, and then attach the syringe. It actually gives you the measurements on the back. So downhill bike, you're going to have the whole lot. This is 140mm, and you can see there 29 inches, going to be 140, right down to 26 inches, 75. So these are 26.5 inch wheels. It's more of a cross-country bike, so I'm going to leave it at roughly about 3 syringes, which is about half, and let's see how we get on. So as you can see, pretty much no mess. So the valve goes back in, swill it around the tyre, and that should seal up any other little micro holes you might have, seal up the edges, and hopefully just assist the patch that I've just done. And that's it. So hopefully that should be a fixed tyre, but it's an old tyre. These principles do work, but this tyre must be 15 years old. So fingers crossed, but that is the principle. Tyre pretty much fixed.